Alright, so what I want to talk about today is why I don't like modern UI frameworks and why I think web developers and people who do web development need to focus on building simpler things with simpler components. So specifically what I'm talking about is a framework I'm creating called Black and White. Black and White is designed to be an alternative to big everything included in the box frameworks like Bootstrap and Semantic UI. Personally, I've used Bootstrap, and I found that while it's really good at getting things up and running really quickly, it really gets in the way later on in your app when you're trying to customize specific things. So, for example, I want to make a drop-down on my navbar and it goes to the left instead of the right. The Bootstrap drop-downs go to the right, but I want to make them go to the left, but Bootstrap can't do that. And so you have to hack it. Another problem is, okay, I want to build a Pinterest type of app. So with Bootstrap, you have a Bootstrap modal, right? Now we have JavaScript, right? Modal window is a JavaScript-based module, right? It's a pop-up. The JavaScript shows the pop-up, right? So now we have Bootstrap, a UI framework, is coupled with JavaScript functionality, and the JavaScript functionality is only compatible with Bootstrap, which is another problem, right? But getting back to my point, I want to do a modal window like Pinterest, right? I click on one of my masonry items, I see a modal window, but next to the modal window, I see two other windows. Like the modal window has the image, and then next to it are like, recommended items and other people's favorite items and like metadata, right? But Bootstrap doesn't really support that. It supports one modal window. And if I want to scroll modal, then I have to download some plugin and go through some GitHub and deal with someone's bug fixes because this Bootstrap scroll modal doesn't work with this version of Bootstrap, and the theming of Bootstrap that I'm using is not compatible. All these compatibility issues, right? And all I want to do is show a modal with one window, but then have another window here and here. So that's the problem with Bootstrap. And that's the problem with these out-of-the-box, here you can do this, 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 and this, and this, and this frameworks. They tell you what to do. They give you specific things to do. They give you rules which leave you wondering, if I want to do something that there is an example of, then how do I do it, right? And so the point of Black and White really is to build basic building blocks, build the basic boilerplate of components. What's a component? The most basic thing is forms, right? Every website has inputs, and forms have inputs in them, right? So there's text inputs, there's select inputs, there's radio buttons, and there's checkboxes. So provide basic default styling for these. What do I mean by that? I mean, if you have an input, it has an empty state, it has a placeholder, it has a focused state where your focus is inside of it, right? for checkboxes and radios, right? You have your default browser style, but there's some work involved in getting your own radio styles, meaning I have an icon that says selected and I have an icon that says deselected. What HTML do I write to get my custom selected and deselected icons to show and work correctly without JavaScript, just using native radio buttons? So we talked about inputs, we talked about radio buttons, we talked about checkboxes, which are conceptually the same. But then we can also talk about buttons, right? What's a button? A button is something you click, and again, a button has different states associated with it. It has a default state. It has an on-hover state. It has a pressed state. Now, most people, when they're building a front-end web app or a website from scratch, they don't know about all this stuff. Like, oh, there's the press state. Oh, there's the focused state. So my goal, again, is just to provide people like sort of a boilerplate for all the things that you need to worry about. And the boilerplate for customizing the checkboxes and the inputs or the whatevers. So you can make your site however you want it to look like, but these are the low-level components, and these are the patterns you're going to use to be able to accomplish that, right? How does this differ from Bootstrap? How does this differ from other frameworks? I like to pick on Bootstrap because it's the biggest and most popular one. One thing I don't like about Bootstrap is that its form, each form input has like a form control div around it. So it's like, if I want to build a Bootstrap form, I need to have inputs with form controls. And I'm like, well, why do I need this wrapper that's a form control over my input, right? I mean, I know as a front-end developer, I don't need that. If I want to style my form input, I can just style the input tag. I don't need to put a wrapper on it. But Bootstrap's like, no, you need to use a form field wrapper, which means basically around every input you're putting a div around it with a specific class, right? So it's shit like that that pisses me off. Even the concept of a grid is very pretentious. It's like every CSS framework has this concept of a grid. What is a grid? A grid is just a percentage system. You want a 12-column grid. Okay, well then do 100 divided by 12. And what do you get? You get a percentage. And so if you want 12 columns, you do 100 divided by 12, you get that number, and you do div 1, that number, div 2, that number. So if we're say we want a 5-column layout, what's 100 divided by 5? It's 20. So if you want a 5-column layout, you're going to make 5 divs with width 20%, and all of them are float left, and all of them are in a ClearFix container. So why are we continuing to do this grid system? Why not just have a system that says, okay, if you want to make an element that's 20% of the container, then you can use a class called left20, right? Float left 20%. So shit, now you can make a 5-column grid, a 6-column grid. You can make a 64% column and a 36% column, right? So this is the basic idea. I'm just I'm tired of these UI frameworks that are forcing you into a specific area and then leaving you there, and then building Bootstrap modal or themes and widgets on top of widgets, and then you have Bootstrap Angular, and then you have Bootstrap Angular modal, and you have Bootstrap Angular modal Webpack grunt. All these fucked up dependency hell shit things, and it all starts from Bootstrap. It all starts from the beginning. It all starts with your UI, right? Is your UI coupled with your JavaScript? That's not good. Is your UI and JavaScript coupled with your router? Okay, that's not good either. Right? So we need to stop, right, in terms of web development, we need to stop. Well, one thing is we need to stop fucking having a clusterfuck of technologies. It's like web components, ES6, CoffeeScript, Grunt, Gulp, fucking Browserify, Require.js. Like, just skip all the bullshit. Like, that's one thing. The second thing is that we need to develop modules that are simply compatible with everything else. So if I'm building a UI framework, I'm calling it black and white, then it's going to be compatible with everything else. Now, I don't want somebody to build a black and white React black and white coupled thing where the JavaScript needs to have some CSS property set for it to work. It's stupid. I don't want to block you to use your own UI framework unless it's shitty. Like it doesn't work with mine. Mine is just, anyways. The point is, black and white is a framework with no bullshit. It's made by me. I don't like bullshit. I like things to be as simple as possible. And there seems to be this sort of divide. It's like, oh, well, if it's simple, then that means you're offloading all the complexity to me. And I think I can show that that's not the case. Right? I can demonstrate, okay, here are the typical baseline components. Oh, there's an input, there's a checkbox. And with this input and this checkbox, in container, I can build a form. And a form is just a container with an input and checkbox. And there's width 20 and width 20, whatever. You can have a 12-column form, or maybe in the example, I'll just do something simple, like a 2-column form, etc., etc.